Good day everyone. Today we are going to have a look at how to use artificial neural networks for basic classification purposes. We will be using the MATLAB 2021B in this example. It is strongly recommended that you also use the latest version of MATLAB to get the optimal results out of the classification process. And today what we are going to see is how you can design an artificial neural network using MATLAB and how you are going to optimize the parameters through trial and error and how you can use the model that is generated. So let's get started now. We first look at how the FitCNet architecture by default looks like. So if you are planning to use the FitCNet function, which is the built-in MATLAB function to carry out classification using artificial neural networks, we see that the FitCNet by default implements this architecture that is demonstrated here. So you can see that it has got these many layers built into it. You will not have to design it yourself. You will not have to specify the layers by yourself. They already exist if you use the FitCNet function just as it is. So obviously you can see that there are the 6 layers. First layer is the input layer, which takes in the data which is available to it, which you have already loaded into the workspace. The second one is FC, which is the fully connected layer. Remember, we are talking about conventional artificial neural networks, which basically mean that all the neurons in one layer are connected to all the neurons in the next layer also. So they are always going to be fully connected layers. Hence, you have a fully connected layer, and then you have an activation function, which is the ReLU activation function by default, which can be changed if you are interested. You have another fully connected layer, and after that you have the softmax layer, which is kind of the default layer. You cannot modify this. Softmax layer is the final layer before the output is given out from the neural network. Now let's move a little forward and see what are the parameters that you can set for each of these layers. So what you can see is that the fully connected layer by default has got 10 outputs, 10 neurons. In case you are interested in adding more, you can increase them, and you can also add more layers to this system by just adjusting the layer sizes argument that is provided along with the FitCNet function. So you can also access the weights and the biases that are given to each of the layers neurons by using the MDL layer weights and MDL layer biases property of the model, which is given as MDL in this case. You can obviously give the model any name that you want. So just as a placeholder, I have called it MDL. So in case its name is like say cap, so it will be cap dot layer weights 1 and cap dot layer biases 1. Here I have used the name MDL, that's why you are seeing it as MDL. Layer weights are keywords, you cannot change this. Layer biases are again keywords, you cannot change this. However, MDL is the model name that you have chosen. This could be anything that you wish. Same name of the model as you have designed. Okay. So we go to the next option that we can adjust, which is the ReLU activation function. So you by default the activation function is ReLU. You can change it to sigmoid or tanh, whichever activation function you are interested in, by using the activations name value argument in the FitCNet function. Now the next most important layer that we have to talk about is the final fully connected layer. This is something that we have seen in the diagram. This is the layer that you see here, the FC just before the softmax function. The softmax layer that you see here is the layer we are talking about. Why is it important? It is important because this is something which should have exactly the same number of classes or the number of outputs as the number of classes in the dataset. So if you have a 10 class classification problem, the fully connected layer, the second fully connected layer or the last fully connected layer should always have 10 as the number of neurons. And once you have passed that layer, you have another layer which again you cannot change, which is the softmax layer. The softmax layer is the penultimate layer of the network, and it uses by default the softmax function to calculate the scores for each of the classes for a given sample. And the output layer obviously gives you the output including the class labels and the score together. So this is how the architecture looks like, and what we will see next is how you can use this function to very quickly design a simple artificial neural network based classifier. Once you have cleared the workspace, the next step in the process is to read the data into the workspace. That is done with the help of the read table function in MATLAB. All that we do is we read the file which is at the given location. In our case, it is at this particular location, and the name of the file is sensorless drive diagnostics.txt. So this dataset has been downloaded from the UCI dataset, which can be downloaded from here. And you can see this is a very interesting dataset with a large number of features and a large number of samples and quite a decently large number of classes also. So in this dataset, we will get a lot of variability and a lot of options to play around with the parameters of artificial neural networks. That's why we have chosen this dataset. It's a little bit large, so please make sure that you are able to download this before working with this. So roughly should be about 25 MB or so. So please make sure that you download it and save it in a location before we start working with this dataset. We'll get back to the dataset import right now. So we have seen that we have imported the dataset into the variable dataset here, and what we do is we rename the 49th variable or the 49th feature as the output class, because once you use the read table function by itself will not be able to say which is the class variable and which are the features. So what we are doing is we are just renaming only the last feature as class, just for easy identification, and we convert the class variables into categorical. So categorical function will convert whatever attribute values are present into categorical values. So let's run this and see what happens. So now we can see that we have got the data set here in the workspace. It has got 58,509 samples with 49 columns. 48 are features and the 49th one is the class variable. So you can double click on this and see that it has got 48 variables, and 49th we have renamed as class. And it was required to do so because these class variables are not strings, they are numbers. So unless you label them as categorical, all the mathematical operations will also be possible with this, and it could actually create a lot of problems eventually. So we do not want that to happen. These are all categorical values. 11 classes are there, so we use 1 to 11 as categorical attributes. So there will be no addition multiplication possible with these numbers. Ideally they should be strings, but if strings are not there and it's numbers, the MATLAB importer automatically considers them to be numbers. So we have to tell MATLAB that no, this is not a number, this is a class variable that I am talking about. It somehow looks like one, but it's actually class 1 and class 2 and class 3 and class 4 and so along up to class 11. So that's how the import of data happens. Now once the data has been imported, One option to have a look at data is to either go to the workspace, double click on the data and just go inside and check. Or what you can do is you can use the head function, HEAD, which will just give you the first 8 rows of the data set with all the features in it. So this is just to view a summary of how the dataset looks like. It does not give you anything about the statistical analysis of data or anything of that sort. This will just help you visualize how the whole thing looks like. And as you can see, we have not given any specific name to all the other features except class. So they default to the variable names var1, var2, var3 and so on. It will go on up to the var48. var49 we had labeled or relabeled as class in the above lines. So this is how dataset can be visualized. Okay, once the visualization is done, what we do is we have a look at the statistical summary of the dataset. You can see here that once you give the function summary of the dataset, the summary statistics of all the features individually will begin to appear here. And if you see, if there are large number of features, there is a scroller here. You can just click on this and just come down and see if it's all fine. If there is any issue with the variances going to 0, or if the mean value is 0, or any abnormal occurrences of data, if they're present, they should kind of show up in the summary statistics also. All right, so that is possible. You can see here all these variables are mentioned. And finally, if you look at the class variable, we have relabeled it as categorical. That is why you are seeing the total number of samples which belong to each class. You can see there are 11 classes and there are 5,319 samples which belong to each of these class. So total number of samples in our data set is 5319 into 11. And you can see the data set is completely properly balanced. The next step in the process is to set the ANN training parameters. So what we do is we first set what is the maximum possible number of iterations that the algorithm will run before it automatically terminates. So this is to ensure that the algorithm does not keep on running forever. So this kind of provides you a hard stop, that you stop after a given amount of time or given amount of iterations. So here we have set it at 950. It can vary from case to case based on how much you think will be required to solve it. And you can see here I have used a slider here. The slider can be taken from the control box here, and you can use any of these. Just simply drag and drop here, and you can set the values by just taking this, right clicking it and giving configure control. You can give the variable names, which is actually max iters. What is the minimum value of the slider? What is the maximum value of the slider? And as you move the slider, the minimum step with which it can move is given here. So I have given the maximum iterations as 10,000, moving in steps of 50. So as I move the slider, the smallest increment I can move the slider by is 50 iterations. And the execution part will tell the MATLAB program what should happen once the slider has moved. So as soon as the slider moves, you can see there are several options here, value changer and value changing. So what I have done is I have given it to value changed, which means that once the slider has moved and the person has taken the pointer out of that, what will happen next is that it should run all the code from that point onwards to the end. That's what I have set. You can also set it to do nothing. Several options are there, as you can see. But what we want to do is as soon as the slider is moved, the whole algorithm will have to be run once again. So that helps us do the work a lot quicker. Same thing I can do with the layer neuron count also. In this case, we are going to have a look at a single hidden layer feed forward network, and the layer neuron count basically says how many neurons do you want in the hidden layer. So here it is 142. It could be larger, it could be smaller. You can set it up based on the requirement. So mostly it is going to be trial and error. You do not know in advance what will be the optimal number of neurons or what should be the optimal number of iterations needed. So you have to do this using trial and error. And the third parameter that we have not discussed so far is the loss tolerance. This is the minimum loss of your cost function below which the algorithm will automatically terminate. Ideally, it should be around 10 to the power minus 6 or 10 to the power minus 8, which is very close to 0. So as the loss function reduces, the cost function's value will also begin to drop, and finally you will see that for very large number of iterations or for a system which has begun to learn very well, the loss functions will drop to a very small value. So if you want a more lower loss function, it will require more number of iterations to reach there. But if the loss that you need before the algorithm breaks out is smaller, it will reach there in lesser number of iterations. So it's up to you to select what do you want. I have taken it to be 10 to the power minus 4. Default people usually select as 10 to the power minus 6 or 10 to the power minus 8. So you can modify it according to your requirements. But people usually do this as 10 to the power minus 6 or 10 to the power minus 8 and leave it as it is. The step 4 in our problem is to actually do the fitting of the artificial neural network. So we have defined the model name as NNMDL. You can define any name that you want. We use the built-in function fitCnet. The data is stored in the table dataset, and the output classes are in the variable named class in the table dataset. If you remember, we renamed the last feature in the table dataset as class. So that is what we are looking at. The response variable name has to be given here. And I have used the layer sizes as the layer neuron count, which basically means that in this example, I have 142 neurons in my neural network. Verbose equals to 1 tells the program that I want it to be displayed here. The training progress will be displayed here. And I have put the iteration limits as max iters, which I have already set to 950. And loss tolerance value that should be considered should be 10 to the power minus 4. And then I simply run the code. So you can see you get something like this. And you can see here that the number of iterations keeps on going. And as the number of iterations increases, it takes more and more time. But you can also see that the training loss will begin to drop. You are seeing here that by the time of around 640 iterations or so, the training loss has dropped to 0.08. If you look at the training loss in the first iteration, you will find that it is 0.32. And you should also see that the gradient should also drop. So you can see the gradient is 0.121, training loss is 0.32. At the end of about 600 iterations, you will see that the end of about 600 iterations, if you look, you should be able to see that the gradient has dropped to 0.06 and the loss has dropped to 0.83. And then it's still going down. So as you increase more and more the number of maximum iterations that the system can handle, you will find that the losses could keep on dropping. But eventually, after a point, they will plateau out, and that is where the maximum learning is considered to have happened. And the neural network model parameters are also listed out here. The next step is to look at the in-sample results, which can be done by just using the resubpredict function. So the resubpredict function will simply take the model that we have already trained and passes the training set to it. So you do not have to directly specify the samples from the training set as it is. It will automatically pick it up and run it past it and see the results, and it will be put as test results. So if you plot the confusion matrix, you can see that the confusion mat function will be used to generate the confusion matrix, and it will get stored in the confusion mat function. Then what will happen is that the calculations can then be made after that. It will be an n cross n matrix if n is the number of classes you have. Plot confusion, on the other hand, just plots the confusion matrix here. You can see that the confusion matrix has been plotted like this, and you can see the green squares tell you correctly classified samples, and all the remaining are the misclassified number of samples. So the overall classification accuracy that we have seen is about 70.2%, with 29.8% being misclassified. And individual class-wise performance can be seen by looking at the sides here. And once that is done, we can use the confusion mat output that we have generated earlier here to calculate the overall accuracy, which is just the summation of all elements along the diagonal. You can see here all the samples along the diagonal are simply added together, divided by the total number of samples. So that should directly give you the resubstitution accuracy, or 70.19%, or 0.7019 is the accuracy that you get for in-sample testing, which you can see is not very good. So you have to further tune either the number of neurons or the number of iterations or the loss function to improve the accuracy. But assuming that we have done the training to the best possible extent, we will go to the final step, which is to evaluate the performance on test samples which the system has never seen before. So I just pick a test sample with a lot of values, 48 to be exact, and I simply run it using the predict function. I used my trained model NNMDL, and the test sample is my input to the model. The output of the predict function will be a label which gives the class to which the highest score has been given, and score, which will give you the scores for all the 11 classes. So that's how this algorithm will work. And the NNMDL model is the artificial neural network model, which can then be either ported out or maybe saved as a separate independent model. So let's run it one by one and see how the whole thing works. So let's start from the beginning again. We go to step 1. I clear everything. Then I move on to the next step. I load my data set. Data set is now loaded. You can see here that the data set is loaded. I visualize how my data set looks like and calculates its summary statistics. You can see that it has been done. Summary statistics is also here, and see here the summary statistics is on here. Next step is I will set the training parameters. That's also done. You can see here that max iters, loss, stall, and layer count is also there. Once all this is done, I go to the next step, which is the actual training of the artificial neural network. So I just give run section and watch as the training progresses. You can see this whole thing is going, and you can see that only part of it will be visible because you have to use this slider to scroll down and see what is happening. We have given a substantially large number of iterations, so it may take a little while before the whole thing completes. So we will wait till the number of iterations completes, and then we will move on. Now that the training is over, we will be able to see how the network has behaved, and you can see here that the classification process is completed, and now we will have a look at its in-sample results, which are like this. So we'll just run the section, and we should be able to see that this is how the system shows its output. You can see here we have exactly got the same 70.2% as the classification accuracy. And after this, what we do is we just simply use this model to run it on a test sample and see how the response is. You give the run section here, and you can see here that the sample has been exactly classified correctly as belonging to class 11, because this course, if you look at it, classification has been very good and you get a perfect score of 1 for class 11. That is why the label has been assigned to class. If the classification were a little poorer, you would have got all non-zero values here, and this would have been less than 1, obviously. So the values that you will get here, the score values, if you sum all of them, they should always add up to 1. That's how the system works also. So with this, we have come to the end of artificial neural network design and application. And in the next video, we will be seeing more complicated applications of artificial neural network and possibly deep learning applications as well.